What if the Chicos have the same god?
All right, this ain't church. Retrieve the collateral damage and move out. Selling is high.
Space is just a shortcut.
You won't even know the shaman. Suddenly he'll grab you. He'll throw you in a corner and he'll say, "Did you know that if is the middle word in life?"
Okay, easy, sir. Captain Journeys, United States Army Special.
If you keep your head down without you, it's really raining on you. If you can trust yourself and all without you, I can't. I'm a little man. I'm a little man. People from your world have been here before.
We find this. We are interested in your species.
I should have been a pair of ragged claws.
You are a strange species. Not liking the other. You'd be surprised at me. Haven't you, White Savage?
Hey Vince, why do they call aliens chicks?
Because they look like chicos. They're like leaves. They grow themselves in your skin.
To me, they look more like praying mantis.
You don't understand the first thing about humans. They're at their most formidable when they're threatened.
That challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone.
You are at your very best and things are worst.
You're tuned into Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where we peer into the future, embrace the power of AI, and delve deep into the conspiracies that shape our world.
Are you looking for a way to connect with your spirituality? Look no further than Spirit Magica Crystal Shop. They have a wide variety of crystals, from amethyst to obsidian and more, including crystal packs, unique deals, and amazing customer service. The products are made with the highest quality materials and are backed by their satisfaction guarantee. Spirit Magica Crystal Shop are committed to helping you find the tools and resources you need to live a magical life. So what are you waiting for? Visit Spirit Magica today. Use coupon code Troubled Minds, all one word, at checkout for 25% off your first purchase.
KUAP Digital Broadcasting, the Troubled Minds Radio Network.
Making me crazy. I'm reaching out. Come on. I'm reaching out. I'm reaching out, reaching out.
Hello. Sound like a police officer. Hello. What's going off here then? No, it's not a police officer show. It's the Exo My Own podcast with your incredibly famous host, Liam Martin. Today, starting the new year, a new show, back from the festive break. Nice to see Erika in the chat there, having a little chat before the show. So, yes, Examine podcasts are back. 2024. Here we are again. It's off to do another show, see what the year brings for us. Hope you've had a nice festive period, everyone that's listening. Hope you've had fun over Christmas and the new year. But if not, it's a new year. It's a new day. It's a new dawn. So you never know what's around the corner. And in fact, I'll show you after the break. I've got a little, it just occurred to me, I think I've mentioned it before, but talking about impossible things and trying to achieve goals, I've got an impossible object that I've mentioned before on the show. So as soon as it's New Year, after the break, I'll whip it out and I'll tell you a quick story about that, which is just some weird news, just an impossible thing that happened. And I've got like an object to sort of prove it, whatever. So yeah, I'll share that with you. But yes, yesterday on today's show, actually, I'm going to do something a bit different. I've decided that since the world went really weird last few years, I've been ignoring the news as much as I can, much as you can get away with. But I've come to realize that I'm probably lagging behind with it. And I think it's important to sort of stay on top of current affairs and know what's going on in the world. So I've decided that I might do a bit of a little news section at the start of each show. Now, I've got a good source of news from the UK. They've got a website and on Facebook as well. Find UK Column. I discovered them during the big medical crisis, UK Column, and I quite rate them as far as it comes to UK news. They seem to really be on top of stuff. It's like an independent news channel that came through, and they're a bit like if the BBC was, run by the people sort of thing. That kind of format, but just does a lot. So yeah, so in future I'm going to I'll pick up some UK Column stories, and we'll do that because they get in depth with stuff. But for today, I thought because I'm venturing back into looking at the news, I thought we'll do a quick news section, and I'll just pick I'll pick a couple of random tabloids and just random news stories. We'll see what's going on with all the mainstream media, because I haven't had a look for about 2 years at least. So we'll have a quick look at that, and then we'll go to the break, do a little news segment, go to the break, and then we'll get into shamanism, because on today's show, it's going to be mostly based on the shamanistic journeys and journeys into exploring the spiritual realm. So today's show, after the news section that we're going to do in a minute, we'll embark on a transformative journey into the ancient mystical world of shamanism and the shamanistic journey exploring spiritual realms in this episode of the Examines podcast. This captivating show will delve into, I put series in the title, I didn't mean to do that in the description, but maybe we'll make it a series because it seems quite in depth. But yes, in this captivating episode, we'll delve into the rich tapestry of shamanistic practices across diverse cultures, unveiling the wisdom, the rituals, the profound spiritual connections that shape these ancient traditions. So join your seasoned host as he traverses through the continents and the cultures, immersing viewers in a profound and awe-inspiring realm of shamanistic wisdom. This episode will venture into the heart of indigenous communities, offering an intimate portrayal of the customs, the beliefs, the sacred ceremonies that have passed down from generation to generation. Sup, OG Skywatcher. Hi there. Yeah, I'll type in the chat so you know I'm live. I typed hi there. So, all right, should we check Twitch? I started streaming on Twitch recently. I don't think anyone knows. No, there's nobody on Twitch. I think I've only done about 2 shows on there. But yeah, I started figuring out how to stream to more places. I'm going to say Rumble seems to double up as well. And there's like a fake episode that just keeps looping 5 minutes and then the actual one. So I'm going to try and figure that out. But anyway, yes. We're going to have a look at going to have a journey into the shamanistic journeys into exploring the spiritual realms. But before we do that, I think I should have a look at a bit of news, because I haven't looked at news for ages. Like I say, I'm thinking about doing a news section at the beginning just to see what's going on. So let's get me off there. Let's bring this up. Right, I'll get me off the screen. It's for the video so they can see properly. In fact, we should have the little me in the corner there. How about that one? Okay, so I thought pick a random couple of articles. So Daily Mail. Oh man, you should have seen before this. I just had to click on one because the front page is just what's this? Okay, let's just what is this story? But no, we'll go back to this Generation Z story about aging. But yeah, look at this front page one. There was a different when I started putting the show together. There was a totally different news story here. So they just got some random 16-year-old prodigy has overcome early stumbling at the cross to claim Alexandria Prize in London as he fought back to cross the line set of wins to claim consecutive wins. Who is this guy? He's a darts player. I don't know. I don't know if that's a big front page story, but this is the UK tabloids for you. He's done it again. Trying to do a little pun. Don't really work. Done it again. Because his kebab fan Luke the Nuke Litzler, 16-year-old, demolishes former champion Rob Cross to become the youngest ever World's Darts Championship finalist, securing at least £200,000 payday and earning a hug from his delighted girlfriend. So, at first glance, sports story, darts, is it really front page news? But it is because this guy's a world first. The youngest ever World Darts Championship finalist. So there's that. So we've got to see about Luke the Nuke Littler there. 16-year-old made it into finalist of Darts Championship. But that's not the story I was going to do. I wanted to do this one, which just seemed to move. So we're going to do this one though. So from the Daily Mail, from today, this one. Yeah, from today, earlier on in the afternoon, from the Daily Mail. This is actually could be quite interesting. Why are Gen Z aging so differently to millennials? Well, you know what? I didn't know they were. Sports is OG Skywatcher. The only escape is into shamanism. I think you could be onto something there. Sports is a distraction and a cult, in my opinion. Well, I tell you what, OG Skywatch. OG Skywatch, I would totally agree with that. In fact, let's say this. I would go as far as to say that, it's bred in circuses, just like the Roman stuff. It's bred in circuses. In fact, let me tell you a little story about the television. There's a little known story. If you can go and look this up, you don't need to reference it. It's one of them you can look it up, right? The television, this little tube that we're in on the video screen there. The television, when it was first invented, sometimes you invent technology. It's like the laser got invented, and it was like we haven't really got use for it yet. It's like a solution waiting for a problem. Well, the television was one of them. When it first got the idea to make it, there was like, okay, but like the telephone, thought who's going to want a telephone or a radio, a broadcast to nowhere? And yet, radio obviously became a thing. And the television, on about this, just a little distraction there, the sports distraction, bred in circuses. When the television came about, they knew it was going to be a useful propaganda tool, said it will teach people what to wear, what to eat, and who to vote for, right? And what came with that was the idea of the sports stadiums. There would be a sports stadium in every major city. Now, at the time when you didn't have television, sports were for kids, right? Sports were for kids. I know there's been sports going a long time, like before the television, but in general, people talking to each other at the weekends because there's no television and that you get together after work, And the idea was put a major sports stadium in every major city. That's like the gladiator arena, like in the Roman days. And so they said sports for the guys and emotive stuff for the women, which came in the form of, buy a magazine that's aimed at women and you get a free chocolate bar. And that was like the deal. You get emotive stuff, emotive stories for women, and then sports for guys to take part in a tribalism thing, which is a culture. So technically, that's a cult. Any culture, this work culture, this sports culture, is a different culture in one sport than there is to a different sport. There's man culture, there's work culture in the office. If you work in office culture, there's cultures everywhere. And Terence McKenna comes up in this, actually, shamanism, but Terence McKenna once said culture is not your friend. So that's a great point. That's a great point by OG Skywatch. And this is why we have to get together and talk about these things. A great comment in the chat. Yeah, it's going to be a good topic. Nice to see Matt's out. Yeah, it's going to be a cool topic, this one. What you mean, strange, spooky news of mysterious nature? Yeah, most interesting spooky news. Well, I've got a spooky news feed actually, which I will start dropping some of them in as well, just to mix it up. But yeah, what else have I got? I just got MK Ultra on all of us. Pseudo war. Pretty much seems that way sometimes. Destroy the other team with the cheers of the crowd. It's polarizing, isn't it? You know, the red team or the blue team, it's that same old thing. But anyway, yeah, sorry, just a bit of a distraction there. But yeah, it's a good. Thanks for that little heads up, Rico. I think that's a good idea. I'll drop a couple of weird news stories in there because I've discovered this little weird news feed. But today, just thought let's see what some boring stories are, just for this first time, and then the standard stuff, and then I'll start doing my own little news thing. I mean, take on Russell Brand. Well, no, join him and join him in talking about this stuff because he goes to the edge, but don't cross it. I don't think. Anyway, yeah. So. Gen Z aging differently to millennials, apparently. I don't know what this is about. So, experts reveal pressure to use wrong skincare too young. Vaping and getting Botox in the early 20s means the younger generation are looking older than those in their 30s. So, it's claimed Generation Z are aging much faster than millennials due to vaping and tweakments. Okay, read more. Stars in their 40s like Kim Kardashian or Andrew Garfield look years younger than celebs the same age decades gone by. So they're saying we're making us look older. So what's doing that then? They're saying bad habits, basically, according to this from the Daily Mail. So reading on. They've been repeatedly berating the boomers and Gen Z, but one surprising win for millennials is their youthful appearance. As the earliest members of Generation Y approach their mid-40s, many people have been left baffled as to how the group is aging much more slowly than the generations before and after them. Healthier diets, better knowledge of skincare and improvements to the makeup means that these born between 1980 and 1997 appear more youthful than older generations did at the same age. That kind of makes sense, right? Okay, we're getting some extra nutritional knowledge. People are doing the keep fit a lot in the 80s, and it follows through to the 90s. So, yeah, and there was an economic boom. In this is 1980 to 1997. There was an economic boom then in the mid to late 90s. So, yeah, everything's good. People using skincare, taking care of themselves. That kind of makes sense. But surprisingly, the trend hasn't continued into Generation Z. They've not been getting healthier. Those born from 1998 to 2012 who are aging differently to those above them. While millennials learned how to use good skincare techniques in their late teens and 20s, many Gen Z have been overexposed to techniques that started using products incorrectly, causing them to age prematurely, a number of experts have revealed in Female. Aesthetics experts have explained that using the love of vaping exposure to blue light and getting treatments too young, treatments to tweak yourself. That's what that is then. Yeah, so start again. Aesthetics experts have explained that using the love of vaping, exposure to blue light, and getting treatments too young are also a reason celebrities and influencers in their late teens and early 20s look decades older than those in the past. Overuse of unnecessary application of filler and toxins at a younger age may affect natural facial development, causing younger patients to look older than the celebrity cosmetics doctor has said, whose name was Dr. Rakshani Moghadam. Okay, so here's a point then. So we've seen, I haven't got the article here, but we've seen in other articles where the younger generation, the one before this one, and so we're talking about Generation Z getting older, looking older and overexposing to techniques and skincare and taking treatments, doing blue light too early, making them look older. But also as well, I think it's worth mentioning that there's been articles where it's been shown that the use of social media is causing young kids' brains to start developing differently, like younger kids. So these technologies and these advancements aren't always, you've got to be responsible for them, haven't you? I suppose this is the meat of the story on that one. But anyway, yes, moving on. Let's do another quick story. What we got here, another random one, straight from the BBC front page. It's from 9 hours ago. Mother in UK court after children's death in Colorado. That's not very fun, is it? But this is okay. So this is a mother accused of murdering 2 of her children in the US has appeared in court for extradition proceedings after being arrested in the UK. Kimberly Singler, 35, was detained on Saturday in central London. A daughter aged 9 and son and 7-year-old were found dead at their home in Colorado on the 19th of December, along with 11-year-old daughter who was injured, US police had said. They issued a warrant for the arrest a week later. Ms. Slinger has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder, 3 counts of child abuse and 1 count of assault. Holy crap. Oh my God. That's horrible. No wonder I've been avoiding the news. These are just random stories I picked. I just clicked on some of the main ones and then just see what will come up, like a potluck. So, wow, that's crazy. So the UK National Crime Unit, the NCA, said she appeared in Westminster Magistrates Court on Monday for an extradition hearing. She was remanded in custody and will appear in court on 29th of January. Spokeswoman for the NCA said on Saturday, 30th of December 2023, in the Kensington area of London, officers of the National Crime Agency, an extradition unit, arrested a 35-year-old female wanted in the United States for offences including 2 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. In a press release last week, Colorado Springs Police Department said it first responded to a 911 call reporting a burglary at Colorado residence at 29 minutes past midnight local time on the 19th, on the day in question. Miss Slinger and her eldest daughter were found injured and received treatment at the scene before being taken to hospital, it was said. The force later determined the initial report of burglary to be unfounded. That's a bit strange then. So she's called in for a burglary. There's injured people. She's injured and the daughter's the eldest is injured, the 11-year-old. They've called in about a burglary, but later the police determined it was unfounded. In this latest release, it confirmed she was arrested without incident in the UK and said that more information will be shared with the press in the future. That's a bit of a strange one. That seems a bit odd to me, that does. Report a burglary, go to hospital, get your injuries sorted out, then disappear out of the country and 2 of your kids have gone missing, or got killed. It looks weird, doesn't it? That's strange. That's strange. In a statement issued by his lawyer, Mrs. Slinger's ex-husband, Kevin Wentz, said he was devastated when he learned of the children's deaths and that he and his family were suffering a tremendous amount of grief and shock. A private funeral for the children is planned next week. Wow, that's pretty harsh. Pretty harsh. Sorry to bring you such a sad story like that. I say there was just random ones that I picked. I thought, see what's on the top of the front pages. That's why we ended up doing the darts one as well quick, even though it switched it. But no, that's pretty crap. So this is what I'm saying. This is why I haven't been looking at the This is why I've not been looking at the news, because there's like a lot of rubbish and sort of badness out there. But at the same time, I'm trying to make the point of doing it this today, just picking some random ones, is that as hard as this stuff is, because sometimes like you talk about these weird fun stuff, but some of it takes really hard work to get down the rabbit holes and to do the brain stretching. And then some of these rabbit holes go to dark places. And until we perceive the world, listen to the gurus and stuff, even of today, who say you've got to perceive the world as it is. You've got to take the world for as it is. So I just wanted to make a point there of that. It's pretty rough. I'm not going to keep doing these rough stories, but I've just picked some random news stories from today, shoved them up there, for a live reaction. And yeah, that's pretty harsh. And so, but we have to keep an eye on things, don't we? Because it's like, this is me personally. I started to feel like I was burying my head in the sand a little bit, not looking at this stuff. So that's why I thought I'd do this today. And then I'll start getting some news from the UK column and from that weird news stories feed that I've got. So yeah, we'll do some, we'll mix it up a bit. Yeah, this news is okay too. It's got a weird news. I think a bit of both. We do a bit of a mixture. Yeah, destroyed every chain, chose for recovery. Moving towards the Hunger Games model, where the rich and the poor gets more bizarre, mentally ill day by day. Well, this is the thing. We are getting more mental health problems. In fact, there was some articles and some psychologists have been coming out recently saying they're predicting a massive mental health crisis. I'm sure they were saying over the next sort of 5 to 10 years, 15 years. You know, they're saying in the coming years, there's going to be this huge health crisis. And then tied in with that, there's this like worry about, oh, AI is going to take all the sounds funny, but AI is going to take all the menial jobs away from us and all the labor tasks. I was like, yay, good. That's great. That's great. Because like one of the founders of the OpenAI said himself, this would be great. This would be good. It would take away all the crappy jobs. Then people will have to be able to, do fulfilling things and fulfill themselves. And, some of these gurus will be like, why do you need a job? You need food. You'll survive, and that's it. You don't necessarily too many attachments to stuff. And I suppose that's another little thing. We've been kind of encouraged that you've got to have a job and pay taxes to be a good person. And it's like, is it? Is that the only way to do things? Is that the only way to do things? Oh, well, James just turned up. It's a good job you missed the beginning because I decided to do a little news section on the first section, James. And I just picked random British tabloid stories. So you're probably glad you missed it, to be honest. UBI or chaos? Pray tell. I don't know what UBI is. OG Skywatch. Educate me. What's UBI? UBI or chaos? Not quite sure what that means. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, sorry, we just had a sad story, James. In fact, I'll get it off screen, and we'll see if there's a bit more, slightly more fun story. What have we got here? Excuse me, little cough button came in handy there. Yeah, UK manufacturing sector. There's another thing as well. So we've got more news. Things changing. Universal basic income. Of course, yeah. What we're going to do about what's that? Well, the world's going to change more than that. I mean, I don't know quite how. I'm not pretending to have the answers, but yeah, what does the universal basic income look like? We're transitioning, aren't we? I think that's what it is. We're transitioning into other stuff. So, like, say, robots and AI are going to take over some of the labor tasks, which they're supposed to be doing anyway. In fact, we're supposed to use machinery for mining, where people are hand mining cobalt, and the CEOs get told a pretty story. Oh, the machines are doing it. Don't worry. Nobody's getting harmed. But no, they're doing it by hand. So, but then there's another point. Here's another point I heard today. It's like, well, if robots did all the labor jobs, right, would people protest against the robots and say, give us our jobs back? But then what do? Do you say, right, everyone can go back down the mines then? Here's a pickaxe, here's a shovel. But no, people want to do that, would they? They protest against it. We're not doing this, it's bad, So what's it going to be? But yeah, it's definitely the world's changing. Universal basic income or chaos or what? But I don't know, because we've been around for a while. I don't know. I think we can govern ourselves. I know we've been taught to need to be governed, and some of us probably do, or we'll probably need it for a bit, but there's got to be something else we can be doing. I sound like an anarchist now, don't I? Maybe I am one, which is okay. It's not illegal. But anywho, and it's kind of recommended in the Bible if you read it. But anywho, don't be governed. It's supposed to be the deal, But anyway, that's another story. We'll do an old world show about how they carved the world up and changed the borders and changed everything. But anyway, yeah, for now, we'll have a little quick break. I just need to warm my tea up. Back in 5 minutes. Exile Minds podcast. We're done with the news. We'll get into talking about shamanism, shamanistic journeys, exploring spiritual realms. Just after this little break on the Exile Minds podcast with me, Lynn Martin. Back in just a second.
You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where the strange is just another day at the office and the unexplained is our playground.
It's time to talk about a very serious matter. Are you prepared for an alien invasion? It may seem like something out of a sci-fi movie, but the threat may be very real. And that's why the Galactic Alliance is here to help. With our state-of-the-art technology and top-of-the-line defense systems, we're ready to take on any extraterrestrial threat that comes our way. But we can't do it alone. We need your help, citizens of the galaxy. So if you see something suspicious, say something. Report any strange activity to your local Galactic Alliance outpost immediately. And if you want to be extra prepared, sign up for our Alien Defense Training Program. Learn how to use a laser blaster, navigate through space, and communicate with alien species. Who knows? You might even make some new alien friends along the way. So remember, stay vigilant, stay prepared, and together we can keep our galaxy safe. A public service announcement from the Galactic Alliance.
I'll be right there. Don't move.
Imagine a world where information can't be trusted. Not very hard, is it? News service says one thing, website says another. Society starts to fray. All we can turn to are the people we care about. And what if those people weren't who we thought they were? What if the ones closest to us, the ones we've trusted our whole lives, were someone else entirely? What if they weren't even human?
Respectfully? What exactly are you talking about?
Chaos. And that's only the beginning. 5 global terrorist strikes within the past year, each one claimed by a different group.
Business as usual.
That's precisely what they want you to think.
Argentina attacks Colombia. Colombia attacks the Philippines.
A violent chain reaction consuming the globe. You realize that the entire world is war?
The atmosphere has been tense.
There is an architect to that tension. These attacks are escalating. If they hit the soil of a major power,
Do you think the same people are behind all of this?
not people. Scrolls.
Oh, come on, Ross, you know the stories. This didn't start yesterday. It started 30 years ago when the Strokes found Earth. Carol Danvers and Nick Fury promised to find them a new planet. But now they don't want just any planet. They want ours. But can't you see it? All these groups, they're the same. Trolls could be anybody, anywhere, anytime.
And there is only a tiny handful known to live on Earth. That's barely enough
To what? You have no goddamn idea what you're talking about. There are thousands of them, tens of thousands, and you would never know.
Okay, Prescott, let's play a little game of forest for the trees, shall we? Yes, Skrulls can shapeshift. Yes, they're looking for a new home. But as you say, the only Skrull contact has been Fury. That means there are allies.
Then where is Fury? All these other attacks, they mean nothing compared to this. This is the one that sets the world on fire.
Hello. Welcome back to the show. Exomouse Podcast. Your famous host, Liam Martin, broadcasting on Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. Also find us on Spotify, YouTube, stream live on X, formerly Twitter, Twitch, and Rumble as well. So hope you're doing good. Right, we're going to get into shamanism now. That news and traumatise you too much. But yeah, I'll do a proper news section. I just want to see what a random one looked like today, and then I'll get some nitty gritty stories. We'll either do, a couple of in-depth ones with like maybe a paranormal one thrown in the middle. So anyway, yes, we'll do that. But on with the main meat of the show today then. So, Shamanic Journeys. exploring spiritual realms and Examines podcast. So we're going to go from the rhythmic beats to the ceremonial drums, the ethereal chants, the echo through sacred landscapes, witness the mesmerizing rituals that fascinate and facilitate communication with the spirit world. We'll experience the power of healing ceremonies guided by shamans who channel energies to restore balance and harmony within both individuals and the natural world. So in this episode of the Shamanistic Journeys, exploring the spiritual realms, hopefully we'll transcend all this geopolitics, transcend the boundaries, and explore the universal themes of interconnectedness, reverence for nature, and the pursuit of spiritual enlightenment, gaining insight into their animistic beliefs that honor the spirit in all living beings, fostering a profound respect for the earth and its inhabitants. So through this compelling storytelling by myself, Liam Martin, and the breathtaking visuals that we'll all try and imagine when we look at some symbols, the authentic encounters with shamans and their communities, they'll show us the respectful and illuminating exploration of the shamanistic traditions, discover the timeless wisdom and the profound spirituality that lie at the heart of these ancient practices, inviting viewers to reflect on their own connections to the spiritual world and the natural environment, prepared to be captivated and enlightened and inspired for this episode today on Examines podcast. So premise is, wow, what's it all about? That's usually my first question. What's this all about? What's it all about? It's a bit of an ambiguous one, but that's my first question. And what parts of the world do we find this shamanism business in? And what beliefs do they hold? That's what I want to know. I want to find out what's it all about in general. Whereabouts we're seeing this in the world. What are the beliefs specifically? And is there anything unusual about it? Is what I want to know. Because that's what we like on the Examines podcast, the weird, the wonderful, and the meaningful. So, as we say, we're going for the script here before we get some articles up. Shamanism, just a basic preface. It's what the computer says, and then we'll see what Encyclopedia Britannica says, and then we'll get into a bit deeper. So, what does the computer think about this? If I just asked it twice on different days to see if it had come up with exactly the same thing, and it didn't. So, I thought that was pretty cool. So, shouts out to my buddy chatbot there. ChatGPT doesn't just repeat himself over and over again. Okay, so going from the ChatGPT script there, I asked it just generally, what do you think about shamanism? What can you tell me? So shamanism, spiritual practice, is found in various cultures around the world. So it's not just specific to one place then. So that's getting to my second question there. So shamanism, spiritual practice found in various cultures around the world. Shamans are individuals who are believed to have access to the spirit world and use the connections to heal, to gain knowledge, and to help others. The practices are often involve entering altered states of consciousness to communicate with spirits, ancestors, or the other realm, which is the third category of magic, theurgy, what it's talking about there, to communicate with the other realms, ancestors, spirits. That's things other than humans, non-human. Because even if it's your ancestors, what are they now? If you're contacting them in the spirit realm, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, and spirits, what's that? They're not. It's like non-human entities, and that's the third category of magic there. So there's magical practices involved in this, almost probably inherent, but we'll find out. There is also famously the use of psychedelics, and they've talked about the altered states that they often want to get into, altered states of consciousness to communicate with these spirits, ancestors, and the other realms. So they're often using altered states to enact that third category of magic, theurgy. So there's also famously a use of psychedelics in shamanistic rituals. It's seen in some cultures. It means to achieve an altered state of consciousness. So substances like ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, and peyote and others are used in certain rituals to induce visions or spiritual experiences. These substances are often considered sacred sacraments, which I talked about before, like with the Eucharist, the wafer and the wine you get in the Christian ceremony. That's supposed to be a psychedelic originally. It was supposed to be a psychedelic situation. So, and it's a sacrament. It's a religious sacrament, like just like the ayahuasca. In this context of shamanism, these are sacred sacraments. So ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, peyote, and others, such as the wine, the bread, supposed to turn into the body of Christ. Those things are supposed to be psychedelic and induce visions or spiritual experiences, which is what's supposed to be happening with that Eucharist. The Christ is getting inside of you. Okay. So these substances are often considered sacred and used in a controlled ceremonial setting. Is important. Like the Eucharist is ceremony at church. So these are, and the ayahuasca, I've only ever heard it called a ceremony, not even a ritual or anything. The ayahuasca ceremony, thinking back to Graham Hancock and Terence McKenna talked about ayahuasca in a ceremony. There's some singing involved. There's a etiquette and stuff that you have to do. So these things are sacred and they're in a controlled situation. These substances are often considered sacred and used in controlled ceremony settings, and importantly, under the guidance of experienced shamans and spiritual healers. It's essential to note that the use of psychedelics and shamanistic practices is deeply rooted in the culture and the spiritual traditions and is not recreational. Many of these cultures view these substances as tools for spiritual growth, healing, and gaining insights into the nature of existence. Research into the therapeutic potential of psychedelics has gained attention in modern medicine, showing promising results in treating various mental health conditions when used in a controlled, supervised setting. However, the cultural, legal, and ethical considerations surrounding these are complex and vary widely across different societies and legal frameworks, which is true. Like, for example, in this country, all psychedelic mushrooms are considered like Class A or Schedule 1. Okay. In Japan, even something as a psychedelic that might not be thought of as a psychedelic is cannabis. And a lot of people around the world smoke cannabis, but that's a mild way to take it. Okay. But I know in Japan, there was a bit of a debate going on whether they need to relax their laws because it's a 5-year prison sentence, for example, which I think, and obviously there's some place in America where you can buy cannabis, in the high street stores. And again, I know New York State, and a little bit about America, New York State, and I know that there's universities there that are actively studying the benefits of Amanita muscaria, the red and white mushroom, fly agaric, the one that you see in the cartoons and fairy tale stuff. So there is some areas of the world are going to study the benefits of this, and some are not. Like I say, we've got to look at all sides of things. These are supposed to be ceremonial situations, and they're supposed to be a spiritual tool. And harking back to the ancient Greeks, they had the kykeon, a fortified wine, psychedelic, and they had the priestesses as they're the guides. That was the shamans then. They were the medicine women, so they were the ones that would guide you through it. So you've got, I think of it as shamans. I tend to think of them as male, and then the wise woman as female. I suppose both shamans. But anyway, so you've got to respect the context of these things. And talking of respect, I thought, well, respect and controversy then. But I suppose this is the bit where there is a bit of a controversy. There can be controversy surrounding shamanism primarily due to cultural appropriation as well. There's that other thing to think about. There's a psychedelic aspect, and then there's a cultural appropriation, misunderstandings and misrepresentations of indigenous practices. So cultural appropriation, what's that? Well, I'll show you. Cultural appropriation occurs when elements of a marginalized culture when some of these elements of a culture are adopted or used by members of a dominant culture without proper understanding, respect, or permission. In the case of shamanism, practices and rituals that hold deep spiritual significance to indigenous communities have sometimes been appropriated or commercialized for profit, stripped of their cultural context and used without permission or understanding of their true meaning. Furthermore, some individuals claiming to be shamans in the Western world might offer ceremonies or rituals without proper training or respect for the traditions they stem from. This can lead to misunderstandings, exploitation, a lack of authenticity in the practice. Additionally, the use of hallucinogenic substances in some shamanistic practices has raised ethical concerns, especially when these substances are used outside of their traditional cultural context or without proper guidance, potentially risking physical or psychological harm. So I thought this is an important aspect to point out. I thought I mentioned this because we don't want to be misrepresenting, misidentifying, culturally appropriating anything. I don't want to encourage people to do things, you know, to focus on psychedelic substances, and then, you know, you've got to be careful what you put in your body, haven't you? You know, and you've got to be careful of the sensitivity of the you've got to look at the ethics of not only of the drugs side of things. Is it legal where you are? Is that particular sacrament legal? But then you've also got to be using it in the way it's supposed to be used. Because I suppose another part of this as well, while we're talking psychedelics, these psychedelic compounds that you find in nature, you'll notice like the example of a knife. No knife ever jumped up and like cut a carrot for you. You know, no knife ever jumped up and stabbed a person. You know, the knife don't have the power. Someone has to wield it, don't they? And it's like the same with these things. These psychedelic compounds that you find in nature, these alkaloids, they're minding their own business, right? They're not affecting the world until you get some into a nervous system. Then all of a sudden, they're jumping, oh man, I've got a nervous system to deal with. Now I can talk to you. Right. So, you know, and there's a lot of alkaloids in nature, and there's, you know, a lot to it. So, and people are different. They've got their own body chemistry, and you change over time, and this, that, and the other. So you got to know what you're doing with this stuff. And you got to know what you're doing with this. It's not party stuff at all. You don't want to be doing that. That's just asking for trouble. Like saying, you want to be respectful for the cultures where these things are coming from and learn a bit about it. In fact, first ever person I ever talked to psychedelics was somebody online, and it was from Holland, but he didn't want to tell me much of anything. But I've been talking to him because I was into this certain type of music, this artist, and he quizzed me a lot before telling me anything at all. Do you know what I mean? Because I realize now he was probably vetting me to make sure. He didn't send me anything in particular. He just didn't really want to talk about psychedelics until he figured out that, you know, I've got my head screwed on, sort of thing. And I thought I was really sensible. In fact, I've been to Holland once, and I think they're quite sensible people, to be honest. But anyway, let's just have a quick look in the chat, make sure I missed anyone. It took our jobs. I wish the robots would take our jobs. Yeah, shamanism, very ancient, seems to be. We'll get into it properly in a sec, but in grasping the true sacred from OG Skywatch, grasping the true sacred, it's like breaking the mind's conversation, an energy barrier or something. I like that. A bit like, I think I know what you're talking about. I think that concept, I've had that idea before, where it's a bit like you've got a boundary where your brain can go, where your skull is, and it's almost like you have to squeeze your brain like a balloon so it bulbs out a little bit beyond your normal consciousness. So you've got to squeeze your mind a bit, haven't you, with these conversations and these musings. So it like makes a bit balloon out, because you squeeze the balloon, you get a bit that swells out, and that bit's going outside of your normal realm. So that bit then might be able to catch something. It's like casting a fishing net out into the dark. You've got no idea what's there. And don't even know if there's any fish there. It might be a desert, but cast your net, don't you? Hoping to pull something funky in, you know, and then tell friends about it or do a show. But yeah, cultural appropriation, got to be careful of that. And don't dive into just taking psychedelics, especially like if we saw with Generation Z saying they're having too much blue light treatment and not doing the skincare correct or whatever from the news things. And then, yeah, you've got to be careful with this stuff. And I don't know about anybody else, but critical thinking seems to have gone a little bit out of fashion at some point. So we've got to get back on that. That's why we have to do our own research. That's why so many podcasters will say, go and research this stuff yourself. And they put the links in the description, as I do, so you can, and we can share this stuff, but experiential learning, Anyway. So yeah, with the spirituals. So, okay then. So shamanistic practices frequently involve the use, moving on to this. So we've got the beliefs and practices of shamans differ across the world. Which is why you've got to know the particular thing. You've got to know the stuff behind it to know how to use the sacraments properly. Because these beliefs and practices of shamanism differ from culture to culture, often involve the use of altered states of consciousness, sometimes induced by chanting. Doesn't have to be psychedelics. That's just an aspect that comes in sometimes. But it can be induced by chanting. Your Buddhists are famous for that. Drumming, dancing, or say using the hallucinogenic substances. During these altered states, shamans communicate with spirits, ancestors, or animal guides to gain insight, healing powers, or guidance for the community. Guidance for the community. That got my flag coming up. I'll tell you in a minute. Shamanistic practices frequently involve a belief in animism, where all things, including plants, animals, and objects, possess a spiritual essence. This worldview emphasizes the interconnectedness of all life forms and the importance of maintaining harmony and balance within nature. Shamanism isn't confined to one specific religion, but it's part of a cultural and spiritual fabric of various indigenous communities worldwide. Its core principles often emphasize healing, spirituality, and maintaining harmony with nature, which kind of makes it sound very much like paganism, because that's a tapestry of lots of kind of European-centric worldviews on staying in harmony and balance with nature. And that was a principle, one of the key principles of alchemy, I do believe, is the principle of equivalent exchange, which is the balance thing. And pagans do that thing where if you take something from nature, they kind of like to leave something behind, even if it's, if you pick some flowers, you pick some herbs, they might like go and grab a stone and put a stone in place where they were. So it's at least like you're swapping something. And I think that probably then instills an attitude of gratitude, right? Which then, an attitude of gratitude in the self-help stuff, they talk about how that, an attitude of gratitude is they sort of get you healing sort of thing. So stay sort of connected to yourself. If you've got an attitude of gratitude, then it helps, fight depression and that sort of thing. So they do seem very similar. But anyway, let's jump onto a couple of articles. So I've done the quick thing there, and I was just a little side note. I was thinking about how these shamans guide the communities, and I thought, there's something in about that, because I wonder if that's guiding societies to the future, perhaps. And then when I thought about guiding societies to the future, I thought, is that what they're doing? I think they are. I'll get into it in a minute. But yeah, guiding society to the future. I recall Terence McKenna talking about, because obviously he was famous for talking about psychedelics. In fact, who is Terence McKenna? Let's get Terence McKenna up, just for those that's never heard of him. Terence McKenna was an American ethnobotanist and a mystic who advocated the responsible use of naturally occurring psychedelic plants. He spoke and wrote about a variety of subjects, including psychedelic drugs, plant-based ethogens, shamanism, metaphysics, alchemy, language, because the world is made of language, philosophy, culture, technology, and ethnomycology, like and environmentalism. Ethnomycology, that's the mushrooms, and mycologists, like the mycelium, like the stuff, the cobweb stuff that grows. That's the root system of the root system of a mushroom. So yes, so it's a theoretical and the theoretical origins of human consciousness. He was called the Timothy Leary of the 90s, one of the leading authorities on ontological foundations of shamanism, the intellectual voice of rave culture. So that was Terence McKenna, just in case you'd never heard of him. And yeah, basically, he comes up because he talked about psychedelics a lot, talked about shamanism a lot. And I recall him talking about how it's come up where shamanisms will guide societies. I recall him talking about that they like to fast forward to the end of the movie so they can see what happens and they can come back and tell us where we can go. So what, if you go this way, this will happen. If we choose this choice, go this path, this will happen, sort of thing. And so I recall McKenna saying that, and I was thinking maybe that's something akin to, in pop culture, Doctor Strange in the Marvel films is kind of like a shaman because he happens to have that infinity stone that controls time, and he can project himself to multiple timelines, like fast forward into the end of the film to see which one works out best, And, he says he looked at 14 million realities. So Terence McKenna said there is an all-encompassing idea that explains how comes a shaman would know what the weather's going to be like next Wednesday, or who's having an affair with who, or who stole a chicken. That can all be explained if the shaman is transcending 3 dimensions. Then looking what the weather's like next Wednesday is as easy as looking out of the window to see what the weather is like today. So I thought that was an interesting little side note there from McKenna, because of this idea that they guide the societies. So let's quickly, before we've got to take another break in a minute, but let's quickly look what the Encyclopedia Britannica's definition of it is. I'll get myself off screen there. So the Encyclopedia Britannica calls shamanism a religion. Shamanism is a religious phenomenon centered on the shaman, a person believed to achieve various powers through trance, ecstatic religious experience, although shamans' repositories vary from one culture to the next. As I mentioned, they are typically thought to have had the ability to heal the sick, to communicate with the others. We talked about theurgy, the third category of magic, so they can heal as well. And they often escort the souls of the dead to the other world. That's interesting. That's, I suppose, a bit like the priestesses, the Temple of Delphi, where they were talking about, they were given the Kaikion, they'd do it like a year long, they'd do an epic journey to get there. They'd tell them how to prepare the body and come back the next year, and then you go through the ceremony and she'll lead you through. And the ancient Greeks used to call that about, it was just to say it was so important that even the slaves should be allowed to take part in some way. And they said it taught a person how to die well. And then you don't fear death anymore, and it makes life kind of more, colourful. So just mention that's what they were doing in the ancient Greece there. Very similar to, communicating with the other world and escorting the soul of the dead to the other world. But they were doing it while they were still alive, you see. So, yeah, and the term shamanism comes from Manchu Tongus. It's a Manchu Tongus word, shaman. The noun is formed from the verb sa, to know. Thus, the shaman is literally one who knows. That's what shaman means. The shamans recorded in historical ethnographies have included women, men, transgender individuals of every age from middle childhood onwards. So this is anybody can be a shaman. I'll just read that again. The shamans recorded in historical ethnographies have included women, men, and transgender individuals of every age from middle childhood onwards. As its etymology implies, the term applies in the strictest sense only in the religious system of the phenomenon of the peoples of Northern Asia and the Ural Altai, such as Khanty and Mansi, Samoyed, Tungus, Yukagai, Chukochi, and Koryak. However, shamanism is also used more generally to describe indigenous groups in which roles such as a healer, a religious leader, counselor, and councils are combined. So these are people. Sometimes shamanism is, or a shaman is referred to just a person that's got almost like chief of the village. It sounds, or the healer aspects there, the religious leader, the counselor. In a sense, then In this sense, shamans are particularly common among the Arctic peoples, American Indians, and Australian Aborigines, and those groups in Africa, such as the San, have retained their traditional cultures well into the 20th century. Okay, so some people have hung on to this, and I've blasted past the break, but that's okay because we might have started a bit earlier, hopefully. I'm going to have another quick little break then, sticking to this radio clock business, but we're back in just a sec. Exile Minds podcast with me, your host, Liam Martin, back in just a few minutes.
To begin at the beginning. It is spring, moonless night in the small town, starless and Bible black, the cobble streets silent and the hunched quarters and rabbit's wood limping invisible down to the slow black, crow black, fishing boat bobbing sea. The houses are blind as moles, though moles see fine tonight in the snouting velvet dingles, or blind as Captain Cat there in the muffled middle by the pump and the town clock. The shops in mourning, the welfare hall in, and all the people of the lulled and dumbfound town are sleeping now. Hush, the babies are sleeping, the farmers, the fishers, the tradesmen and pensioners, cobblers, schoolteacher, postman and publican, fast and slow asleep. The undertaker and the fancy woman, drunkard, dressmaker, preacher, policeman, the wet-foot cocker women, and the tidy wives. Young girls lie bedded soft or glide in their dream with rings and trousseaux, bridesmaided by glowworms down the aisles of the organ-playing wood. The boys are dreaming wicked, or of the bucking ranches of the night and the jolly Rogered sea, and the anthracite statues of the horses sleep in the fields, and the cows in the byres, and the dogs in the wet-nosed yards, and the cats nap in the slant corners, or lope, sly, streaking and needling on the one cloud of the roofs. You can hear the dew falling and the hushed town breathing. Only your eyes are unclosed to see the black and folded town vast and slow asleep.
Do you crave open, uncensored discussion about the unexplained? Look no further than the Troubled Minds Radio Network, the ultimate destination for those who seek the truth and aren't afraid to speak their minds. The Troubled Minds Radio Network, we don't just talk about UFOs, the paranormal and the ever-changing, shifting news cycle. We dissect them, debate them, and encourage you to join the conversation. Join us as we gather to discuss the mysteries of the world, share your own encounters, and engage in thought-provoking conversation that leaves no stone unturned. Because the Troubled Minds Radio Network, your voice matters and all your ideas are welcome. Tune in, speak out, and explore the unknown. Don't miss out on the most candid, uncensored discussions about the unexplained on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting.
If you're into philosophical constructs, cosmic musings, and the probability of magic in our mysterious world, welcome to Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting.
This is James Salcedo, host of Salcedo Paranormal, and you're listening to the Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting.
Hi, I'm Liam Martin of the Exile Minds podcast. You're listening to the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, the place where we dive into the depths of the unknown. From the Troubled Minds Radio Network, you can join us and embark on a thrilling journey through worlds of science, the paranormal, and the enigmas that defy explanation. Tune in, share, let everybody know that you're listening to Troubled Minds, the place that captivates and takes you to the uncharted territories of knowledge. Welcome back to the show, folks. Thanks for bearing with me with the break there. We're back after the new year, back on with the show, talking about shamanism today. After doing a little bit of a news beat, which I'll get better at. But yeah, shamanistic journeys, exploring the spiritual realms. That's what we're doing today. So I've had a look at the quick overview of what's generally thought about them. We've discovered that it's gender neutral. It's found in places all over the world. Shamanism as a gender neutrality, which we've just read about. So this practice safe various cultures around the world. Individuals regarded as intermediaries between the spirit world and the human world, basically. And they use ritual ceremonies like trance states and connect with the spirit realm to heal, provide guidance, and solve problems. So the beliefs and practices of shamans differ across different cultures, including entering altered states of consciousness. Sometimes that's done by chanting, drumming, dancing, or as I mentioned, using hallucinogenic substances. But this is specifically within a religious context in specific ceremonies with people that's going to guide you through these things that are well experienced, because you have to remember this has been going for a really long time. It's like dawn of man stuff. So, and that, as we're saying, some cultures around the world in Asia and Africa especially have held on to the traditions the way that they've been up right until the 20th century. So yes, we had a little bit of talk about Terence McKenna. We saw the quick oops, pressed the wrong button there. Just get rid of this off screen, get that caption gone. There we go. Right, let's see what people saying in the chat before we move on to another article here. So, yes. So in terms of, these studies, I think we're opening up now. I think OG Skywatch, because I mentioned the psychedelics. It was mentioned, highlighted that, it's gender neutral shamanism can be male or female. Matt's out there. Rico, I asked my doctor if I could try experiencing an isolation tank to induce hallucinations. He said I might go mad. That sounds a bit extreme. Come on, that's only quietness and darkness. Come on. And do you know what? You can always get out of that tank, or you can always make noises, or just get bored and push. I know someone who went to one and they said they got bored and they just started pushing themselves from side to side on the tank, just for fun. So, and in darkness, you are supposed to, you will get nimitars or little hallucinations and that. You will, because your eyes are, people who've been in captivity have talked about that, how they start getting these flashes of light and colours and stuff. But and I think OG Skywatch, again, it brings up a good point, symbiotic. I think we have to have a symbiotic relationship. This is what we're talking about with shamanism, especially. Yeah, well, if you link into nature and you've got it in mind, whether you're dancing or chanting, or you've taken the substance to connect you sort of directly, whatever, yes, it's a symbiotic aspect to this. And it also mentions that first psilocybin treatment center near me in Eugene, Oregon. Well, that's pretty cool then, actually. I think Colorado has them now too. I think you might be right. Well, I know they did they legalized the cannabis, didn't they, in Colorado? One of the first people. And I think California was another one. Didn't Denver do it as well? But yeah, they've made a lot of money from the tax on cannabis. So maybe they're laxing the laws a bit. And I'd say mostly for PTSD. Yeah, I'd heard that too. In fact, you can get. I asked about that. Well, I said it as cannabis. I didn't want to. I asked the health service here. I didn't want to push it too far about getting these treatments, because I didn't know how far they are with it. Because, like I say, some countries are really against it. Some are trying to do studies. So, but I knew that cannabis was available on the National Health Service. So I asked them about that for PTSD, get it in pill form. And there was although they offer it, not necessarily for that, they just was like, no, it's really funny. The doctor was really funny about it, as if it wasn't true. And I thought, I know it is, but and it gets a bit sketchy because they want to give you pharmaceuticals because that's what they're trained to do. Do you know what I mean? But that gets into a sketchy argument, doesn't it, about what's what. And this is why we need to have these studies. So at least, I mean, now it's looking good that we are starting to study these things, because there could be some real benefits in this stuff, But anyway, yes, psilocybin has been studied treatment for, not sure about other studies of PTSD. Yeah, I thought cannabis might have been in there, but I think it's probably more the psilocin in the psilocybin, or CBD, as well. Maybe that's another one, because you've got the benefits there without the high bit. And I think it's the THC that affects receptor sites so that regular medications sometimes won't work, because maybe it blocks the receptor sites. So it's all quite fascinating. Common side effects. Oh yeah, so in reference to doing the psilocin, it's OG Cigar Watch says might be more about mild doses, less toxic than other substances, and the common effects over random effects like like with LSD, the bad trip. Yeah, I suppose if you've got more predictable effects from some of these substances, then they're going to be more reliable. You can test them better, and it's probably going to be more appealing for pharmaceutical companies, because if it's reliable effects, you don't have to package that up, and that's going to be nice. That's something you can sell, you know. Self-hypnosis, temple magic, that could be a thing. In fact, there is Dr. Bruce Goldberg teaches people how to do self-hypnosis, and there's a lot of fantastical claimed results with that, so which I won't get into now. Darkness done not automatically equals evil, says James. In reference to the float tank. Okay, so Matt says we had the chocolate bars in Oregon. Chocolate bars with the psilocin in. Is that what that is? That'd be interesting. I know you can get cannabis wine, I think, from California. I think I've seen that before. But anyway, yes, moving on back into shamanism. I've got a nice... so we've had a quick overview of what the basics are saying, but let's have a look at this one then. Because I've found this, University of Minnesota talking about it. I thought that was interesting because it's a university, you know, academic people's talking about shamanism. So let's see what they've got to say on this. Well, the website is called Taking Charge of Your Well-Being. And it's the University of Minnesota. I thought, oh, that sounds really positive. Taking charge of your well-being. And then they've got an article about shamanism. Right, okay. So this to display similar characteristics. That's from John Matthews, a Celtic shaman. So again, it's going to do the quick, what is shamanism? Shamanism, a spiritual practice that's found in cultures across the world from ancient times to present day. First and foremost, shaman practices are practical and adaptable. These practices coexist over millennia with varying cultures, systems of government, and organized religious practices. Many formalized religions, such as Buddhism to Christianity, came from ancient shamanistic roots and still bear the shamanistic threads of deep connection into the divine of all beings. But shamanism itself is not a formalized system of beliefs or an ideology. Rather, it is a group of activities and experiences shared by shamans in cultures around the world. So they're having shared experiences, common experiences. These practices are adaptable and coexist with different cultures, systems of government, and organized religious practices. So they've worked around it. They've stood the test of time, I think is what I'm getting from this. They've stood the test of time, like those proverbs that you get, like a stitch in time saves 9, you know, clean up as you go, it will save you more work later. These things stand the test of time because there's wisdom in there, you know. So if there's a whole spiritual practice that stood the test of time all the way through, then there must be some wisdoms in there, I would submit. Individual practice. Nowadays, on a non-indigenous culture, shamanism is studied and practiced as a life path. Following shamanistic perspectives, individuals seek to be in a relationship with the spirit of all things. They seek, I suppose you could call that God, if you will. They seek to use information and guidance from non-ordinary reality to intentionally form their own life experience. So they're using information from elsewhere to try and inform them to make this life experience where they are better. This perspective is not inherently contradictory of any religious practices that allows the person to be in a direct relationship with whatever is perceived as a higher power, like I just mentioned. This is compatible. It's compatible with things like Christianity because it's still looking to be connected with all things, the allness, right? Consulting with shamans. Just as in ancient times, contemporary people consult with modern-day shamanistic practitioners for practical and pragmatic solutions to problems in everyday life, from personal illness, professional challenges, or family discord to ancestral issues. Shamans work in involuntary ecstatic trance states which alter their consciousness to travel to realms of the invisible worlds. Their ability to gain information and make changes in the invisible realms is dependent upon working relationships they develop with spirits there. In this sense, shamanism is a relationship-based practice of making changes in invisible realms to impact healing of individuals or communities on the realm of ordinary reality. For some people, such shamanistic practice is part of the dominant culture. For others, it is directly contradictory. Some individuals are intuitively guided to seek help from a contemporary shaman, often when other opinions have been exhausted, without even understanding what a shaman is or how they work. I find that quite fascinating. Let me just read this back here. I found this bit quite interesting. Their ability to gain information and make changes in the invisible realm is dependent on working relationships with the spirits. So that I thought that's quite a fascinating thing, because they're not claiming to then. It's not necessarily going to work every time. It depends on what a good relationship the shaman's got with these entities, and then that gets me thinking to in the DMT realm. That's a potent psychedelic. They're starting to, and we've been talking with the chatters in there in the chat, we've been talking about how they're starting to study psychedelics now and look at the health benefits. Well, there's Dr. David Luke, I think it is, Dr. David Luke and his assistant Pascal in Britain here they've been studying DMT, dimethyltryptamine, and they've devised in a lab a way to create a dimethyltryptamine which will make you have a much longer experience, because dimethyltryptamine, it's processed by your body really quickly, and so the actual quote psychedelic experience is only going to last for maybe 5 to 15 minutes. Okay, maybe 20 if you look at it, but no, it's probably going to be about 10-15 minutes, and that's going to be a lot, and it won't work again. This usually they say it takes you a month for your body to come back into perfect equilibrium to where it was before, so you've got to wait a month in between, really. So then having an extended experience has allowed them to study the realm a bit more, like the shamanistic realms. This is the same place, okay, these psychedelic realms. And in studies of DMT, they've invented, I think it's called, they call it DMTX, where you can have a much longer experience. I think we're talking like an hour. I don't quote me on that, but I think we're talking like, instead of 15 minutes, you've got more like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. You've got a longer experience, so you can be in there longer. So you can you've got a bit more time to sort of get your bearings. And through these repeated studies, they've found that the experiencers are seeing entities repeatedly, the same ones, and different people are reporting the same entities, as if they really are. It's another world with people that there's inhabitants, and if different people, if the same person's repeatedly seeing the same entity, that's one thing. But if different people are describing the same entities, then you've got to think, hang on, whoa, hang on a minute. Some of these things, these realms must be real. The literal other worlds, aren't they? And then if you look at Hinduism, if we look at some Hindu artwork, let me just get some up now. Hindu art. Okay, I'll just get this up on screen. Let's just have a look at some Google images of some Hindu artwork. Right, look how colourful these things are. Let's get one up and I'll describe it. Okay, so we've got one. It's like a big, an orange square. Well, it's more of a rectangle, but almost square. Orange square. You've got characters all along. 3 characters along the left side, 3 characters along the right side. You've got 4 characters along the middle, going along the bottom, and then pretty much central but pushed towards the top. You've got this main character, which looks like a Buddha or bodhisattva being venerated or revered. But all these people are really colourful, and some of them have got extra arms, but this stuff's really colourful. other images and depictions of Hindu artwork. It's really, really colourful stuff, aka as in the psychedelic experience. And you find it the same with Buddhist artwork as well. And these people have been talking about these sorts of practices for a long time. I know it's not strictly shamanism, but you know, a lot of this stuff, as it mentioned earlier, Christianity and shamanism is coming from this. So what's the deal with all this colour? What I'm saying is that in ancient times, they've already started mapping these realms. Whereas we're talking about, you know, inventing a DMT that can give you an extended experience, and we're gradually getting a license to be able to study that, and then getting volunteers, and then they're reporting the same entities again and again. It's like we're starting to map these realms with Western science, whereas the Easterners have already done it. Hinduism's already mapped out these realms and picked out a bunch of entities. And Buddhism has too. You know, Hinduism's got like 1 million deities. Maybe they've just listed every single one they've found. You know, Buddhism, I don't know how many they've got. I don't think they've got as many. But then again, you know, they're kind of rooted in each other. So I'm just saying that if we're seeing entities these days with these extended DMT trials, then I don't know. Maybe these entities are for real. So anyway, let's look at this. Moving on to another article. This is a really long one. This is, so I'm trying to read all of this. But this one's from thesacredscience.com. So The Sacred Science has an article by Nick Polizzi, and it's "What is Shamanism? The Ultimate Beginner's Guide." And I recommend this because it's quite in depth. This is. So this is from thesacredscience.com. What is shamanism? Shrouded in mystery, often misrepresented, shamans practice one of the oldest professions in human history. Known as a healer or a priest, a shaman is capable of harnessing at will invisible forces that play around us, within us, and aid in great healing and gaining wisdom. In our modern world, we've become blind to these deeper realms of consciousness in and around us, but they still exist. As I'm trying to point out with the DMT experiments, the mapping these same entities, they keep coming up. Terence McKenna, there was another one where this word kept coming up, and even in different languages, they were saying the same word. They were stopping, going. The mushroom said sir, sir, and then it turned out that someone else was going. It says and then and then you check the language. Oh, sir means and then. So everybody's getting that same line. It says and then. So there's these commonalities that are popping up, they're coming through. Anyway, so yes, so these invisible realms. In the modern world, we've become blind to these deeper realms of consciousness around us, but they still exist. Or consider this. Let's put this on Google. How much of the electro spectrum is light? Oh, it's just showing the size. Right, I'll just tell you what I was going to say. Light, we think of light, our perception of seeing the world, okay? And, but with the shamanism example, we're saying, no, there's these other realms that we've become blind to, these deeper realms of consciousness, but it still exists. Like the example of the electromagnetic spectrum. That's what we see with our eye sensors. Okay, we're getting color. We've got rods and cones on a retina that picks up this light and the contrast of it, and we use those primary colors and we make up an image. Okay, but that of all the electromagnetic spectrum of everything that can radiate, because everything's radiation basically. This is whether or not it's ionizing is going to hurt you, but yeah, everything's radiating. So light's radiating, all energy radiates. So of all the electromagnetic spectrum radiation that there is, the bit that we've got for light it's less than 1%. It's decimal point stuff. I think it's 0.005%. That's the figure I was just looking up there. But yeah, we're less than 1%. We're less than 0.1. I'm pretty sure that's correct, or it's 0.1%. That's how much you're seeing with light. your eyes. That's how much of the world we're seeing with our eyes. And that's quite a prominent sense, you know. So it's like, well, these other realms, I'm sure they probably well are there. So, okay, let's have a look. Let's move on with this article then. So more people today are waking up to shamanism. I think a lot of people are waking up to a lot of stuff, to be honest. But yes, more people today are waking up to shamanism. They're remembering our innate and intuitive connection with the cosmos and the natural world that is an unshakable part of who we are. And they are using the connection, this superpower, to create modern day miracles to heal unhealable wounds and illnesses and reclaim their lives. So it says in the sacredscience.com. And check out Joe Dispenza. He's got some fantastic results through meditation stuff. Anyway, while every shamanistic culture throughout the world has its own belief system and ritual tools and techniques of differences, many share some central principles and elements. In this article, the goal is to guide you through an understanding of all of these. So it's got a great table of contents. So let me just quickly read this to you. What is a shaman in simple terms? And then it's got a ton of stuff on here. So that's a lot. In shaman in simple terms, as we've talked about, is the one who knows. In traditions of Siberia, Mongolia, and parts of China, it's described as an individual who bridges physical worlds into the realms of the spirit world in order to bring balance and important wisdom to their community and heal the sick. Healing. But that sounds like curing. So that's a sketchy word to be using in terms of medicine. And I think this is why we've got a bit of it loggerheads with Eastern and Western science with a lot of stuff, you know. Excuse me. So yeah, so Eastern and Western sciences, I think they need to start fusing together because it, like I say, it looks as if the Eastern sciences have mapped out time. They've mapped out the psychedelic realm at least, and they've done a big focus on time. We've done a big focus on space, the physical world, whereas they're kind of done a lot more on the metaphysical. Yeah. So anyway, in traditions in some parts of China, Siberia, and Mongolia, describes individuals bringing balance and bridging the physical world to their community and bringing wisdom to the community and healing the sick. Shaman isn't used. The term shaman isn't used universally throughout the world. The concept, though, is. Around the globe, throughout the ages, cultures have had no connection with one another, often had a person, a male or female, as I mentioned, it's gender neutral. Many cultures with no connections to each other have had a male or female capable of moving between worlds and acting as a sort of link. In North America, many indigenous tribes use the term medicine man or medicine woman, which is sort of what I was referring to earlier, the wise woman or the shaman. But yeah, medicine man, medicine woman, the shaman. If you're in Korea, it's called a mudang, which refers to a woman. Across Indonesia, it's called a dukon. And a patago is what you might call a shaman in the Andes, while in South Africa, they're known as sangoma or inyanga. So they've got these different names, but they're doing these same roles. It says on this article, though, there's an important distinction that needs to be pointed out. As Marisa Eliade wrote in his seminal book, Shamanism, not every medicine man, healer, magician, or other title means someone is a shaman. Shamans have distinct abilities. They are said to possess the power to enter trance state and travel into the spirit world and communicate with the spirits, heal illnesses, relieve lost souls, and receive important information and messages to bring back to the communities. For the purposes here, we use the word shaman as an umbrella term, partly because it's the term that most people understand. So where did shaman begin? The history of the shaman takes us far, far back, all the way back to humans prehistory. Oh no, but the break's caught up with us as we're just about to get going. All right, let's do a quick break. I'll make it a shorter one. Do a 4-minute break. So the radio clock. Exile Minds podcast. We're back in just back in just a couple of minutes after I play this quick track from here, and there we go.
Welcome to the
trying to
Troubled
speak
Minds
out,
Radio Network.
Back in just a sec.
Digital broadcasting, where we delve into the mystical, philosophical, and the cosmic in our quest to uncover the unknown.
House Oversight Committee did vow to open hearings about UFOs.
Have you ever been called out as a weirdo, a misfit, or an outcast because you nerd out on topics like ghosts, extraterrestrials, conspiracy theories, cryptids, or anything that isn't mainstream? Do you love exploring different theories, both known and perhaps unknown? If so, join Serena on the Paranormal and Prowl podcast and take a journey and see if these topics have more rabbit holes and explained away conclusions by the mainstream. In fact, why not explore yourself? Indeed, why not explore together? Shall we? Tune in to the Paranormal and Proud podcast with your host Serena on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting.
Environmentalists don't give a shit about the planet. They don't care about the planet. Not in the abstract, they don't. You know what they're interested in? A clean place to live. Their own habitat. They're worried that someday in the future they might be personally inconvenienced. Narrow, unenlightened self-interest doesn't impress me. Besides, there is nothing wrong with the planet. Nothing wrong with the planet. The planet is fine. The people are different. The planet is fine. The planet is doing great. It's been here 4.5 billion years. Did you ever think about the arithmetic? The planet has been here 4.5 billion years. We've been here what? Maybe 200,000.
Watching our TV while some local newscaster tells us today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
Environmentalists don't give a shit.
We know things are bad, worse than bad.
And we've only been engaged in heavy industry for a little over 200 years. 200 years versus 4.5 billion. And we have the conceit to think that somehow we're a threat, that somehow we're going to put in jeopardy this beautiful blue-green ball that's just floating around the sun.
They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy.
Been through all kinds of things worse than us. Been through earthquakes, volcanoes, plate tectonics, continental drifts, solar flares, sunspots, magnetic storms, the magnetic reversal of the poles. Hundreds of thousands of years of bombardment by comets and asteroids and meteors, worldwide floods, tidal waves, worldwide fires, erosion, cosmic rays, recurring ice ages. And we think some plastic bags and some aluminum cans are going to make a difference?
Please, at least leave us alone in our living room.
At least leave us alone in our living rooms. Indeed. Anyway, Exile Minds podcast with me, your host, Liam Martin. Thanks for bearing with us in the break there. Find us on Spotify, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter. Find us on Twitch, Rumble, and all your main podcasting places, as well as the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting. Okay, back on with the shamanism then. Before I do that, let's just show you this. Just for the video viewers, I'm just going to quickly show you that the impossible does happen. This is a fan from a boiler. I've got a fan on camera. It's a big chunky thing. It's broken. But the reason I've got it is because the only person I know in this city is a heating engineer. And I found it in my dustbin. And I asked him what it was when he come around. I came to see him and I said, "What's this? Can you buy it? Can you use it?" And he recognized it, and it turns out that he asked me to see the invoice, right? That fan, I found in my bin, just randomly thrown in there. And I just happened to check, I had an urge. I was putting my dustbins out when the bin men were there, and I had an urge just to check my bin, make sure someone hadn't put something in there, not supposed to. Don't know why. And then I found this thing. So I asked my mate, and it had an invoice in it. And it said, show me an invoice, and it had his name and address on it. And I thought, what the hell? Why is he rubbish in my bin with his name and address on it? He's the only guy I know in this city. Right? The only person I know. Do you know what I'm saying? And it turned out he'd ordered this 3 weeks before, replaced somebody's fan, did a heating job, and threw it in the customer's bin. And it ended up in my bin 3 weeks later. How the hell did that happen? There's no one to screw with us. There's no one that knows where this guy's done a job at this customer's house. Let's go in her bin, steal it, put it in my bin, somehow mess. I might not have seen it. It's only because I happened to just check the bin before I give it to the bin man. So that fan, this fan right here, should be on a landfill. And it should have been, the guy did the job 3 weeks before I found it. They empty the bin every 2 weeks. So this should have been long gone on a landfill, but somehow it's jumped out of a dustbin bin from who knows where, from the other side of the city, into my dustbin. So you explain that to me. And I just wanted to say that because it's on about like impossible stuff in these realms of like entities and, you know, and shamans that are claiming these abilities to see the future and this and travel to places. And it sounds like crazy talk, but what's that fan? Where's that coming from? So I'm saving it. It's a piece of junk really, but I'm going to save that as like proof to myself that impossible, can't possibly happen stuff does happen. I mean, it's not a big thing, is it? It's not going to change the world, but it let me know. Like, what the hell? Broken fan. I don't know. Some deep meaning. Yeah. Am I not a fan of myself? Do I need to work on myself a bit more? You know, but yeah, what the hell's that? You know, I don't know, man. But I don't know where it come from. I don't know how the hell it got there. And I can't believe that the only person I know has stuff in it. But anyway, so yes, moving back onto shamanism, look at some more impossible, crazy stuff. Let's see what else they've got to say then. So, archaeologists, where it began, archaeologists have uncovered a 12,000-year-old grave in modern-day Israel that they say was an ancient shaman burial. So, been going at least 12,000 years, which in last ice age, about 14,000 years ago. So, this has been going since as long as we've got recorded history, folks. Okay, so while in Tassil, Algeria, you can step onto ancient 5,000-year-old cave and view paintings showing a shaman with a head of a bee surrounded by mushrooms. In France and Spain, there are cave paintings that have also been depicting hybrid animal humans that many historians believe are pictures of shamans. Where are shamans found today, you may wonder? And the answer is everywhere. You can find shamanistic cultures or types of shamanism all around the world, from Korea to Ireland. The Koreans are the Musok. Ireland is the Celtics or the Druids, which I kind of link in with paganism a little bit. Although that's another umbrella term. But yes, Ireland's got the Celts, Druids. South Africa and Hawaii have the Huna. Mongolia, Siberia. The Amazon have got shamans, of course, Peru, Mexico, Northern Europe, Zimbabwe, and the continental United States. They've got shamans. Canada's got shamans. Australia's got shamans, as well as core shamanism, a modern-day shamanism founded by Michael Hana that is practiced in the West. So, how were shamans chosen? That's a question I didn't think to ask, but I think this is a poignant question. I think the Buddha is chosen by if a certain bird lands on somebody's house a certain time of year. That's going to be the next Buddha. If there's a baby that's been born there, there's something I've seen in the film Kundun. But anyway, yes, how were shamans chosen? That's a good question. So let's try and answer it. It's said that no one chooses to become a shaman. They either inherit this gift at birth or receive it during an extreme life challenge or close brush with death. Many believe that shamans have the innate ability to connect with the spirit world or the supernatural world. In many shamanistic cultures, shamans have the fates predetermined, passed down through their bloodline or through unintended initiation, often in a near-death experience. I was just going to say that. A near-death experience or an extreme supernatural experience, maybe it clicks something into gear, you know? Maybe it's just simply the case of, as we say on Troubled Minds Radio, drinking the maybe juice, you know, entertaining a thought without necessarily believing it. Or like we've just been talking in the chat earlier on about like trying to push your head outside of the box a little bit, you know, just so you can try and catch fish, cast a net. So in fact, talking in the chat, what have we got in the chat? Further Law said that Essens were trying to see angels and even became one. John the Baptist said to be one. Okay, yes. Well, there is an Egyptian magical ritual, I do believe, to try and see angels. Was it called that? I forget what it's called now. It begins with A. There's a film about it called A Dark Song. It's the Anne Boleyn ritual, I think. It's a 7-day magical ritual, and we have to resist devils every day. You have to resist a demon every day, and then you get to speak to an angel, apparently. So, but if you do anything slightly wrong or don't complete it, you're either stuck forever or something tragic will happen. So that's how that goes. I did it in the Dark Song anyway. But I recommend that. But yes, so yeah, maybe John the Baptist trying to see angels. The stars must have looked amazing back then. I bet they did. Or really, if you're out in the outback somewhere, you can sort of see the galaxy. You can see the Milky Way, can't you? I've never seen the Milky Way. You know, from I've seen it on pictures, but I've never seen it for real. It's too much light pollution. Yeah, and I bet the colours would be much more vibrant. That's a good point, Matt Sale. Yeah, Broken Fan might have a deep meaning. Wounded Healers, Dark Night of the Soul. 7 days. Like the 7 sailors. And there's a good point. The 7 sailors, the 7 rays. The 7 rays. The 7 different things working together. That's how it's supposed to be, in it, with colour. And they're the 7 sailors of life in the Theosophical Society stuff. But anyway, yes, digress. So, going back, yes. So, some shamans have fates are predetermined. It's passed down because of the bloodline or by an unintended initiation into something, like in a death experience. In fact, I know a guy called Brian in Nebraska. I don't know if he listens to my show, but shouts out to Brian. Yeah, he became a shaman. He had this shaman guy that was sort of teaching him shamanism, and then he just like became the shaman. I think the shaman might have even given it up and sort of, or did something like non-shamany. But then again, like I say, it's not all completely strict. But yeah, then he became a shaman through just sort of doing that, just ending up learning the stuff, doing the work. So I suppose, like with James becoming the paranormal expert of the Troubled Minds Radio Network, if you just read enough books and learn enough about it, you know, then you just end up as the guy, don't you? Sort of thing. But anyway, yeah, moving on. So you won't find shamanism studied in much schools. It's an ancient tradition passed down by word of mouth from generation to generation, which things like Brian learned it. Yeah, just the guy telling him stuff without any written account. And in fact, it's interesting that, yeah, it's passed down from generation to generation by word of mouth. And, you know, the Indian sitar, like a guitar, but the Indian version of a guitar, that's another one. It doesn't. I think it doesn't even have a fret. It's got a neck, but I don't think it's got the fretboardy bits. It's just one continuous continuum of all the scale. So you have to learn it by the skill. Someone has to teach you, and there was no written language for the sitar. I'm pretty sure I've seen a documentary about it. So yeah. So that was the thing that had to be taught by someone. So to become a master sitar player, you had to have been taught. There's no musical scripture to follow, you know, and the frets aren't even there. So you've got to be good. You've got to get good, and someone's got to teach you, and then you go and practice. And you know, it's like the master. You've got to keep going back to him, and master craftsman stuff, I suppose. You know, maybe we're missing that stuff today. We're not. Maybe that's it. We're not getting mastery of things, And I think perhaps this is what shamanism's teaching us, to try and get mastery of stuff by understanding things and having mastery over our own connection, which then lets us connect to nature, which can tell us stuff. Maybe that's the trick. And that's why modern day distractions have kind of pulled us away from just feeling and just sitting and being with ourselves, and feeling nature. So anyway, moving on. Yes, so when teaching an apprentice, a shaman not only shows them the ceremonial practices, the medical herbs and the techniques to communicate, to reach the spirit world, but he also shows him how to walk the sacred path in this world. So, is that teaching you the etiquette of the spirit world then, I suppose? Interesting aside, some people have put forth that what we call schizophrenia is actually someone who possesses shamanistic abilities. You know what? I kind of joked about that before with a guy who said he was a schizophrenic. Do you know what I mean? And then it's a bit of a story, but I was trying to help this other guy out who was stressed out in this hospital. So I said, hey, are you okay? Do you want to talk? And then I said, do you want a cigarette? Do you smoke? Should we go outside and have a cigarette? It was dead. He was super stressed out. And this reception staff was a bit like, So I took him outside, had a cigarette with him, and got talking to this young lad. He was just stood there having a cigarette, 18-year-old boxer. I said he's a schizophrenic. But I was talking to this guy who was, I was calming this one guy down. And I just started talking to him. I could talk on the radio, just normal, just saying, a thought that just pops into my head. Fire and forget, as I often say. And then when I'd finished talking to this guy and he got in a taxi and he went, this young so-called schizophrenic 18-year-old boxer guy, he said to me, he says, that happens to me as well. I was like, what happens to you? He says that when you just talk and it just comes through you. And I was like, how did you know that had happened? He says, yeah, because it happens to me. He recognized it. I don't know if any of the listeners ever get that situation, but sometimes you start talking about something and you just say it. And if you hear it back, you realize that you didn't realize you knew that kind of situation. Or you say something and you hear yourself back and you think, that's actually quite sensible. I'm surprised. That kind of situation going on. So, and I jokingly said to this guy, if he was in another country, rather than labeling you a schizophrenic, they'd probably give you the best hut in the village and come to you and ask them what the voices are saying, sort of thing. But who knows? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why the first thing we do is sedate people, because then it'll shut that stuff off. Maybe that happens to people. Maybe people have spiritual experiences. Maybe they have a near-death experience or something happens to freak them out. And then the doctors will give you some kind of meds to, sedate your brain a bit so you can calm down. And maybe it traps people in the process. It's something to think about. It's just an idea. It's popped into my head. But anyway, yes. So what religions is shamanism associated with? I mentioned Christianity earlier, but there's more. There's more. Shamanism isn't religion like Christianity, although it gets labeled as. It's not a religion like Christianity, Islam, or Judaism, where people believe in one central God, nor is it like Hinduism with multiple deities, or even paganism, which has religious undertones. Although many cultures believe in an all-powerful creator or a supreme being, shamanism and animism are much more common. Animism is a spiritual belief that there is spirit in all of nature. Every plant, every stone has spirit, every tree, every animal has spirit, every place has spirit. Insect, a person, even an object has spirit. This belief holds that there are more realms to reality than we can see. Shamanism shares this belief that spirits are everywhere and in everything. It goes a step further, though, to include practices that allow shamans to travel to the spirit world to communicate and enlist spirits for guidance, wisdom, and to aid in healing. So the role of the shaman is more extensive than we might think. I think of a shaman as a healer, but a shaman then is also a priest. But interestingly, also a shaman is a poet. I didn't think of a shaman as a poet, but if the world is made of language, this guy's going to be a great poet. if you think about it, if he's looking behind how the world is painted, if he's going behind the television screen, he can see the workings of it. And the world's made a language, then he's probably going to be a master of language in some respects, or at least the syntax of language. He's seeing that. He's seeing the code in the matrix. And he's a priest, a healer, a poet, a psychic, and a spiritual guide. That's what the shaman is. These are highly sought after powers that shamans have shouldered the communities throughout the ages. Today, we mostly know shamans as a healer priest, working to heal illness of the mind, the body, the heart, and the soul. They offer spiritual and psychological counseling, but not as we know it in the West. In the West, we've separated healing and medicine, but to shamans, all is connected. So healing and medicine are connected too, not separated. So the shaman seeks to understand what's happened to someone's spirit, mind, heart, and body. For the shaman, only by treating the entire being, including the soul, can healing take place, which is a Gestalt approach, which is all-encompassing, the whole. It's a science, an art, and a religion, Matt Sowell points out. That's pretty good. We are priests, healers, and storytellers. We are the dreamers of the dreams, right? I don't know what else. I think that's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's not that much of a prank, but we are. We're the dreamers of the dreams, aren't we? Well, we also got, James got a abilities being passed through bloodlines is the thing. Several members of my parental family have had paranormal experiences going back to my great-grandfather. Well, James, I shall tell you now that there is an entire science behind that. I mean, I don't know how. There is a study in science, I'll say this. There's a study in science called epigenetics. And in epigenetics, let's get a definition. Epigenetics. Epigenetics, James, is a study of how your behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way your genes work. And so, unlike genetic changes, epigenetic changes are reversible and do not change your DNA sequence, but they can change how your body reads DNA sequence. So the reason that matters is because when they've been looking at it as, does the behaviors or the experience of your ancestors somehow shape how you're going to read your DNA sequence? And so it's a roundabout way of looking at and saying, has what your ancestors experienced, is that somehow affecting who you are? You see, and then that gets into that 100th monkey effect thing, where once 100 monkeys on this chain of islands learn to wash potatoes to get the sand off so they can eat them, then all the monkeys got it. Once you put rats for a maze of a certain species, and then you have the same species run for an identical maze in a different part of the world to get through it faster. So then there's this thing of like, it's something to do with our genetics, got memory in it that can, change us today. So if you've got shamans that have got these inherent abilities, and maybe there is something to do with the bloodline and the genes, and if they then be a shaman for say, 20 years, 30 years, and get good, because they've been doing it 3 decades, then maybe that's a talented shaman. So then if they pass that on to same bloodlines and they've already got the inherent ability, it makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense to keep passing it sort of down. But like the Bajorans in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, where the different family names all had a particular job. So I suppose they're called Butcher and Baker and Smith, but they kept doing those jobs for centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries. So those family names, they're good. They're really good at their jobs, And a bit of Star Trek Federation kind of equality stuff came in, and then they all wanted different jobs, but nobody's any good at anything because that's all they've been done for generations and generations. So I think there is something to wanting to, retain those abilities and try and nurture them. I suppose like you do when you breed animals, or when you try and culture grasses to then end up getting corn. You try and develop things in a certain direction, don't you, sometimes? Anyway, we're running out of time, so let's have a look at some of these abilities that shamans claim to have. What abilities do they have then? So as mentioned earlier, it's believed that shamans, the living bridge between this dimension and the other world that we cannot see, and they possess the ability to pull back the veil of reality. The shamans, experts like Mircea Eliade, as mentioned earlier, who wrote the book Shamanism, Archaic Techniques of Ecstasy, have observed that shamans have the unique ability to alter their state of consciousness in order to travel to the spirit world, where they can communicate the direct experiences with helping spirits. They can literally talk to these other entities. They've honed these techniques over so long, 12,000 years at least, to be able to talk to them and see what they want. So some of the more common helper spirits that the shaman will communicate with will include power animals, spirit guides, guardian spirits, souls of deceased shamans, spirits of plants, natural elements and rocks. In some shamanistic cultures, gods and demigods and spiritual masters are contacted, and also spiritual teachers. The shaman prays to helping spirits, speaking to them, sees them, and invokes them to aid in the healing or share the wisdom that will protect or keep their community safe. Shamanistic healing is, in shamanism, it's any illness, whether it's physical, emotional, or mental, may have a spiritual component that requires treating, because they're seeing everything as the whole, right? So cue the shaman who will go on a shamanistic journey or a soul flight, traveling to the realm of the spirit. The shaman will seek guidance from helping spirits and help to heal their patient, or to release any internal spiritual blocks that the patient has got that as the root of their illness, a spiritual block, and they'll get them to clear it. So I suppose they're going to ask them to put energy into it, or help them to clear something out. And there's also a thing, before we wrap up this show, I just want to mention this last bit here. There's shamanistic soul retrieval. Well, this sounds quite wild. We'll get it in quick before we finish. Sometimes to heal the patient, we must perform what's called a soul retrieval, where a shaman travels to the spirit world to bring back part of the patient's lost soul. Wow. In some shamanistic cultures in Siberia, Mongolia, and China and Indonesia, it's believed the patient can lose part of their soul after experiencing a trauma, whether or not that's a one-time event or repeatedly over time. Traumas include emotional, physical, mental, or spiritual events that overwhelms an individual's ability to cope. So, wow. So that's a bit like saying if you've got PTSD, then I guess, then maybe you need a soul retrieval. Maybe you lose a piece of yourself. And I suppose a trauma can do that to you. You can, like a lost love, or, sometimes you feel lost with things, don't you? When things change. So it's like, maybe that's it then. Maybe you need to do a soul retrieval to get literally that missing piece back. Just an interesting thing that's came up there. All right, before I go, just see if there's any more comments in the chat. Soul retrieval. I have to look into that a bit more. So there's loads more on this article, but we've run out of time. So one last comment in the chat there. Also, based on what I've heard, it seems that to be more sensitive than most other family members, which is not bragging, but it's not always fun. Yeah, some people are gonna have if you got the thing going on a bit more, some people are just gonna get it heightened, aren't they? Got the gift, and I suppose you've got other heightened senses anyway, James. So yeah, it's gonna. I suppose your environmental situation conditions it as well. It's a gift, you ask. Call it a gift as well, Enrico. Maybe Bohemian Grove were shamans. Maybe, or maybe they use them, but I think these magical workings, they are a thing. That's sort of what I'm getting to. So, yes, I think maybe there was using them at Bohemian Grove and other places. This stuff is a thing. I think the magical stuff in the spirit realm. So that's what I want to convey and encourage people to look into it. But anyway, that's enough for me. Troubled Minds Radio Network. You find us on there. Find us on Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, and all your regular podcasting platforms. Tune into Examine's podcast. And I shall see you tomorrow night, 10 p.m. GMT. Take it easy, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks to you all in the chat. Yeah, it could be a blessing or a curse. That's true, Matt. So anyway, y'all take care. We'll see you soon.
Called out as a weirdo, a misfit, or an outcast because you nerd out
on topics like ghosts, extraterrestrials, conspiracy theories, cryptids, or anything that isn't mainstream? Do you love exploring different